Morning. This is my first bucket talk in November. But it's the first time I'm going to address November stuff because there's certain things that I do in November, and one of those is I do an assessment throughout the month of November. And so I'm going to share some of those things in that assessment with you today and as we go through the month of November. I have little things that I can share. One of them is I'm going to share with you a quiz called the Business Profit Indicator. So that will help you to determine the profitability opportunity for you in the business that you're in, that you're looking at, whatever it might be. I think it will be really helpful to you. I really like it. I've worked pretty hard on this over a couple of years ago. I actually brought somebody in on the team to help me to develop that. And it seems grossly oversimplified. When you look at although there are over 20 questions on it, there's not much more than that. But it's a great little quiz that will help you. But in November, we are going to focus our attention on assessing where we're at, because that's really important. I look at three things: the past, present, and the future. Obviously, that's what we do. Today, I'm going to ask you three vital questions. I'm going to share this probably on Mondays about the ramp up to the assessment throughout the month of November. We'll still do the Wednesday focus, will be on product, but on Mondays we'll do the assessment for how do you figure out what to do in 2020, okay? That's the whole reason why we do this in November. So before I lose my prop here, I have the most high-tech equipment. If you all could see my high-tech equipment, you would be embarrassed. Because the truth is I kind of am, but we'll get it figured out. Okay. So past, present, future, three vital questions. Number one, what did I do? You have to take a look at what did you do in the previous year. Okay. And sometimes when you look back in that year, I realize that my last 12 months were very, very different than I thought they would be. I started the 1st of November in the hospital. Didn't plan for that. That was not on my schedule. Matter of fact, when I ended up in the hospital, what I posted on Facebook was this was not on my agenda. And there happened to be several trips that were not on my agenda. There were several things that happened that were not on my agenda, but there are some things that were on my agenda, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to include those. So you want to look at your achievements. You also want to sometimes look at your failures. What did I fail to do, and what did I learn from that failure? Because sometimes the shortest path to profitability is to fail. I know that seems ridiculous, but the shortest path to profitability sometimes can be failure. So you look at your achievements, you look at your failures, you also look at the obstacles that you ran into. What did you learn from those obstacles? One of the things I learned from the obstacles that I ran into in the past year, in the past 12 months, was I needed help. I needed somebody that could be there when I couldn't. And so I found somebody to do that, okay? That was important to do that. What did you learn from the obstacles that you ran into, and what did you do to address that? So the first thing is you look at what did you do? You look back. What did you do? The next thing is you look at this, and I'll call this one, I have lots of phrases for this one, but today we're going to call it, what should I dump? Is there something that I need to dump? Is there something that I keep putting my time, investing my time in, I invest my money in, that I just need to dump? Are there people that I invest my time in that I need to dump? Sometimes we just need to dump something in order for us to be free. We talked about this last week, called it adding by subtracting. Sometimes we have to subtract things. We can't, good morning, Miss Betty. We can't subtract every negative thing from our life. We can't subtract every negative person from our life. We can't do that. But we can subtract and we can dump the toxicity that brings to us. And so sometimes we need to take a look at, what do I need to dump? And I'm going to give you 4 real quickly. Sometimes we're spending money on things that we need to dump. Okay? It's just true. And I have people all the time who say, well, I just want to get my investment back. You're investing valuable time in something That's not going to get you where you want to go. So that's sometimes we need to dump that. Number two, we need to dump people. Sometimes we need to dump toxicity from our life. Number three, sometimes we need to dump an idea. Either an idea that is past or an idea that we just knew this was going to be the greatest thing on the planet and nobody else agreed with you. And so sometimes we need to dump ideas. Watched a fascinating video last week on when Steve Jobs came back in as the CEO of Apple, and what he did. He said we're gonna dump some things, and we're gonna get back to doing what we do best. So what should you dump? Very important. And number four, sometimes we need to dump dreams. Okay, we've dreamed of having this amazing thing. I realized this week when I was watching the most ridiculous thing on television, I went, I could do that. No, you can't. You know better. You think that you can do that. I remember eating supper one night, and a neighborhood kid came up and knocked on my door and said, and this has been a long time ago, so just understand this. He knocks on my door and he goes, hey, I heard you could dunk a basketball. I didn't know an old man could dunk. I said, let me finish my mashed potatoes and I'll come out and I'll do that. And so that's what I did. I finished my mashed potatoes. I went outside, decided that I could show this kid that I could dunk, and I did. I dunked a basketball. I landed on the back of my head, tore my shoulder up. Later had to have shoulder surgery, had to have multiple injections in that shoulder to try to fix it. My dream of dunking a basketball died that day because I realized that while I could, my body couldn't. And sometimes we need to dump a dream, okay? I say that ridiculous one because that was a major issue for me. I lived to play basketball. And the day that I realized that just because somebody said, I bet you can't, doesn't mean I should. Remember that. Okay? And then the third question that you need to focus your attention on in order for you to assess your future is, what do I have that I'm going to take with me into 2020? I have this. You've seen me hold this up over and over and over again. This was when I did, hey, Jason, I want to talk to you as soon as we get finished, okay? So hit me up Messenger just as soon as we get finished. I take this with me. When I first started doing live feeds, I would hold this up and I would shake this and I would do this over and over and over again. And I did it to remind people that you start where you're at to get where you want to go. You don't create a brand new path to get someplace. This was what I did. I traveled the country teaching people how to make color matched finishes. That's what I did. And I spoke everywhere about this. This is what got me on a public platform. This is what I knew that made it possible for me to do that. And so sometimes we have to return to the things that we know, right? Don't forget that. The best place to start is where you are. It's not where you want to be, but it's where you are. Okay? And so that's given me an awareness of three things I'm going to share with you today, first of all, and then I'm going to be done. All right? My heart and my passion has always been local business. Even though I've spent an awful lot of time in the internet space, my heart and my passion has been local business. And the reason is because, I'm going to give you a really cool reason for this. When I spent some time with my grandson, he gave me this. Not that you need to see this or need to know what it is, but it reminded me that somebody somewhere someday is going to have to give that boy a job. I have got a 17-year-old granddaughter who will turn 17 in the next few weeks, and one that'll turn 15, and one that'll turn that's 12. And I look at those kids. Somebody's got to employ them. Somebody's got to give them a job, and it will be a local business that will do it first. Okay? That's where they'll learn how to treat people. That's where they'll learn customer service. That's where they'll learn, as important as their parents are, and their parents are my kids, okay? As important as they are, they'll get a chance to experience it firsthand at their first job at somebody's local business. And so my passion for teenagers, my passion for kids, the best way I can fulfill that, the very best way I can fulfill that is to put my focus and my attention and my energy on local business. Which brings me to the second thing. A couple of years ago, I decided to start a podcast. I did it by just taking my live feeds and putting them in a podcast, and I was amazed at how incredibly popular that was. I did 107 of those. Yes. Can you believe that? I did 107 of them. And I got contacts from people that I didn't know. And so I was beginning to see some success from that podcast. Then things happened. Health issues. I had a couple of people who said, live feeds don't make the best podcast because there's noise in the background. And I did have some noise in the background. So we're in the process right now of going through my live feed stack, which includes more than 450 live feeds. And I'm going to take those live feeds and I'm going to extract from that content and make a podcast platform that makes sense, okay? So we're gonna reintroduce that. That will be one of the big things for 2020 is to do that because I believe that we've got things in that live feed stack that will be beneficial to local businesses, and that's going to be a focus for us. That doesn't mean I won't continue to do the live feeds, but it means that I'm gonna take the live feed content and we're going to use it for podcasts. And that's going to be, that's a change that gets me out of the backyard because there's too much noise that was going on. As much as I love to hear the birds singing in the background, it's really cool on a live feed. It's not really cool on a podcast. So there'll be some changes. That's one of the reasons why you're seeing what you see this morning is that I'm in the process of making that transition. One of the things I'm going to do is I use my background a little bit more than I have in the past. And so you're going to see some changes. Those are going to be things that are going to be going into 2020. And then finally, the purpose of the diagram on the back, which is not a diagram yet. There's I don't know, 8 of them hanging on the walls in here. Is because I want to focus my attention on one of the things that when I look back, we spent a lot of time developing a tech stack, and I'll be talking about how to use that and what's involved in doing that and why sometimes you want to outsource that to somebody else, okay? And how you can do that to your best interest, all right? So that's my bucket talk this morning, not on a bucket, but it will be a bucket talk. I think I'm probably going to name the podcast Bucket Talks. And I haven't decided that yet, but probably going to name it that. I'm working with a couple of people who are huge in that space and getting advice from them as to what's the best thing to do. I need for people to be able to find it. The problem that we have right now is it's difficult to search the content. Difficult to search it in Facebook because that's not what people are looking for. It was pretty good on YouTube, so I don't know. We're going to take a careful look at what are we doing now, right? That we can carry into 2020, only make it better. That's my point, because we need a bigger audience. One of the things that I failed to do in 2019 was number 3 in my 3 words, simplify, stewardship, and impact, was that our impact actually went down because Facebook decided not to give my audience notification that I'm live. And so there's been some changes that will have to take place in order for us to have a bigger impact. Okay. All right. Whole bunch of stuff on a Monday, but thank you for joining me. I always love you and appreciate you coming in and watching my live feeds no matter when they happen. Okay. So have a great week. Let's get this thing kicked off well. Okay.